Jason Fitz is host of Spain and Fitz. Weeknights at 7 on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, never a dull moment around these parts, Jay Fitz, is, the Eagles fired their coach on Monday, and Ben Simmons appears to be almost traded for James Harden. I don't know where you'd like to start, but I guess we'll start with the fresh news, which is this gaining steam story of Ben Simmons and James Harden could be switching places by the end of the day here.
If I am an NBA fan and I'm looking at this trade from both sides, I feel a lot better about whoever gets Ben Simmons than I do about whoever gets James Harden. And that's just being real, because realistically, guys, we know who Ben Simmons has been for Philly, but we have no idea what a different sort of city situation. We don't know. Like, if you changed everything around Simmons, what will that do to the man, to the player? Like, there's at least that variable in the discussion. There is no variables left. There are no variables left on the discussion of who James Harden is. We at this point, we know exactly who he is, and we've seen a franchise go all in on everything, the offense, the coach, everything that you could possibly want, and put themselves at the cusp of the availability to at least get a championship. I mean, it's not like it was an epic fail in Houston. They weren't a bad team, but they didn't get it done. So it depends on what you want, because in my mind, we have seen the best that we will ever see in James Harden. We've seen a structure, a team, teammates around him that will allow him to succeed, all built around Harden. And it's good enough to get you really close to a title. So if you're good with that, that's your best case scenario. So I don't love the best case scenario for Philly getting Harden. I don't care what else is around him, because we've seen so much. I at least can make an argument that you put Simmons in a new environment with different teammates, maybe something changes for him, and in his level of effectiveness takes a big jump. But there's no jump left for Harden. He is who he is.
Well, you can make the argument, just playing devil's advocate, that he's in a new environment with different guys here. He has Joel Embiid, yes, but he's got a new coach. They got Seth Curry. And by the way, I think a lot of this, like, yeah, he's not shooting. He's not doing that, but he's still played pretty well when he's had the spacing and the shooters around him. It just, last night you see a game where they don't have the spacing and the shooting, and he's a liability.
Yeah, you're 1,000% right, by the way. Like, I think that was one of the keys of what we should be keeping an eye out for with Philly this year. Is like they were making change, and sometimes, you guys know I'm risk averse sometimes. So change for the sake of change I don't always love. But it's far easier, as we talked about before, to find a new coach than it is to find a new superstar player. So you're absolutely right that there's been some element of change around him, and he does need certain things. Not every, but 99% of the guys in the NBA, to be at their best, need some things tailored around them. And in today's world, in a pandemic where everything is so limited and the way that they can practice is limited and how the team functions is limited, I think we're going to see a more up and down NBA season than we've ever seen, a more undisciplined on the court season than we've ever seen before. So, I can't take last night and then suddenly apply that to everything around Ben Simmons. You're right. There's at least room to grow. If you want to come in and sing everything's coming up roses around Ben Simmons, you can at least find a reason to do that. If I'm Houston right now, what I'm trying to do is get rid of somebody that's being so vocal at this point, get as much in return for him, and most importantly, remain relevant. Simmons will continue to make Houston relevant. So I'll give them credit for that side of it. If I'm Philly, what am I getting out of Harden? I know that Brooklyn has been disappointing. So I realize that for a lot of people that makes your eyes big and you say, wait, maybe they're not going to dominate the East. The East is more open than we thought. And maybe Harden is the piece that gets there. But do you really feel like Harden is suddenly the piece that's going to make Philly better than the Lakers? Because that's what you're really chasing if you're chasing Harden.
I know it's all about the stars when it comes to these trades, but some of the rumored pieces involved with possibly moving Ben Simmons to Houston is Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey. I think a lot of us can agree that, okay, Matisse Thybulle, that's not a big deal, but Tyrese Maxey's kind of showing us something that, he's only 20 years old. I mean, he's doing some really impressive things. Should that be something that should concern Sixers fans if you were to move on with him? Or is it, look, you can find plenty of those pieces. It's about gaining that star.
No, you can't find plenty of those pieces. You're absolutely right. And in today's world, development of young players is more important than ever, and it's more key to how you're actually able to win a championship than ever. I realize I just used the Lakers as an example, and maybe that's the worst case because it's just two superstars, and I think the three of us can fill out the rest of the lineup, and they still have a shot at the NBA Finals, and you don't want to watch me try and play. So I get it, but for most teams, when you've got somebody that is young and you're trying to figure out how to develop around him, like you can find that mid-level piece. The mid-level piece is more important than we give it credit for. So I was a little surprised to see so many of the rumors that include giving up so much in addition to Simmons for Harden, because again, like if I'm Philly, what am I trying to accomplish here? Because bringing in Harden is awesome. It's great, fine, but it's got to make you superstar potential. So if you do anything that sacrifices your depth, I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, by the way, reports out there from Woj that the Rockets have basically they're going to hold him out until they try to get a trade here. So it looks like James Harden has played his last game for the Rockets, which means this thing's really amping up, which leads me into my next question. Bradley Beal looks like he could also be moved. It might be a slower process. So if you're Daryl Morey, do you take the chance to wait out that and say, I'll pass on Harden, but you might not end up getting Beal? Do you just take Harden if he's available to you? Or do you say, you know what, I'm okay if I don't get James Harden with what I got, but I'll go for Beal if he's available?
Yeah, 1,000 times out of 1,000 for me. I mean, because, again, what are you giving up? You're going to give up a lot less to get Bradley Beal. And, at some point, I'll go back to what I said with Harden earlier, because we've seen where Harden is. We've also seen, and I love these reports, and we've seen, everybody's seen it, that, wherever he goes, the team trusts that the new contract won't be an issue and everybody's going to be hunky-dory. Why? Why do you – if Harden goes to Philly, what indication do we have that Harden's going to want to stay in Philly long-term? What indication do you really have that in a year he won't turn around and do the same thing to Philly that he's doing right now to Houston? So, there's just nothing I trust about Harden that puts me over the edge to make me a championship team. At least with Bradley Beal, you're getting somebody that you can have some level of, okay, we know he's going to – if we come here, we've got a shot that we create a bond and a loyalty with the player that can let us continue to build something, because I don't trust that with Harden at all. So, yeah, if I have the choice between Harden and Beal for Philly, I'd take Beal all day.
Earlier in this season, when the season just began and Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers both got here, they were pretty vocal about, we want to see what this team is like under Doc Rivers. Would you anticipate that, hey, maybe Doc Rivers is in there going, I want to have the ability to coach these guys without the COVID issues, or do you think he's more open to it than some may think?
I think what Rivers was saying, what they were both saying when they said we want to see this team, is we want to see these guys under a different microscope and make our own opinions on them, which, by the way, is what every new coaching regime should always do. I mean, the fact that you can think one thing about a player from your limited interactions, from conversations about him, but once you're in the building with them, you see him every day. If they're willing to move on from Ben Simmons, that as much as anything says that, to me, Doc has seen who Ben Simmons is day in and day out and doesn't believe that he has an extra gear, doesn't believe that he's somebody that he can maintain focus with, motivation with, and continue that level of play. So I think that's a little concerning to who Ben Simmons is behind the scenes. We look at trades so often, and it doesn't matter. This isn't just an NBA issue. It's also an NFL issue. We look at trades so often as just about what's happening on the court or on the field. I think that more often than not, it has as much to do with what happens behind the scenes as anything. So it's a statement to me by Doc if they give up on Ben.
Jason Fitz is our guest. Spain and Fitz is the show, 7 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. This is Philly. We like drama, so we fire the coach after he's won a Super Bowl 3 years ago. Fair? The game was on Nickelodeon, so we got to say it. Fair or unfair? It's like Kids Court. Unfair. Remember that show?
I think we did this before.
Yeah.
the Unfair show.
I was not stunned by the move. I was a little surprised by the timing of it. And this is what, when everything went down and they put in Jalen Hurts, I said at the time, part of what you got there was the coaching staff telling the entire locker room, hey, this isn't a coaching issue, it's a player issue, and he's got to play better. I also think that sort of deflects some of the responsibility that Doug Pederson had on trying to get Carson Wentz in a better groove. And then you look at what happened in the last game of the season. And, for all of the conversation we had, what to me was surprising about the fact, look, I have no problem. Let me say loudly, every organization does what's best for their organization. So if Philly wants to pull Jalen Hurts and they want to lose the game, fine, that's okay. But to me, the two most surprising things about it was it said that there was a level of cockiness or confidence, I should say, in Doug Pederson that he's coming back, because why else do you just accept the loss? But then the other part of it is you're playing against a decent team on the other side that has a great defensive line, that's well coached on the defensive side of the ball, that's a division rival, and you have an opportunity to see what Jalen Hurts is capable of at the NFL level doing it. I thought it was a missed opportunity and sort of a statement right there. So now you've got a coach that has to go into his locker room and say, hey, guys, give me your all every single day. And when it's best for the organization, we'll give our all back. I just think that's a tough win in the locker room with guys afterwards that seemed really shocked by the decision. So the inability to communicate it clearly, that falls at the coach's feet. So, I'm looking at all of this and saying the one thing, and this is my hot take, my hot Eagles take that nobody else wants to hear. The one thing I'd say is now you've got a new regime that's going to come in and the 6th overall pick. I do believe that Justin Fields will be one of several quarterbacks available at the 6th overall pick. So if I'm Jalen Hurts, I am more nervous than ever that a new regime comes in, looks around, and decides it's not Wentz, it's not Hurts, it's somebody else completely. You get yourself a new quarterback, and you start this process entirely all over again. So it's not personally what I would do, but I wouldn't be surprised. We see it all the time. New regime, new quarterback. I'm not comfortable in that Philly room until I see the draft come through that there's not going to be another guy brought in.
Does winning a Super Bowl hold power anymore? Gil and I were going back and forth yesterday. If you get to the highest point and it still gets you fired, what message does that send when it comes to actually achieving that goal? But I kind of countered with, just because you win a Super Bowl doesn't mean you'll always be a Super Bowl winning type of head coach like McCarthy, and I hate to say your guy, but maybe John Gruden as well. If the Eagles front office sees, hey, this isn't trending in the right direction, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to stick with them because of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I'll go back to my music experience on this. And one thing that always, every time I got offered a new gig, if I was out on the road with the band and another band called or another artist called, every single time I would sit down with my wife and I would say, what's the next 5 years look like for this artist that I'm being asked to join? So, for example, when I was asked to join the band Perry in country music, I was playing for another guy in country that had just had a #1 song. And there were a lot of people that thought I was crazy leaving him to go join the band Perry when the band Perry had not had a #1 song yet. Everybody looks at it and says, yeah, but this guy, the guy you're playing for, just had a #1. And the whole thing to me was, what's it going to be for the next 5 years? That's the standard the coaches need to be held to. And you use Gruden, and I think that's a great example. At some point, you got to look at it and say, I don't care where we've been. It's great that you've shown me you can win a Super Bowl. Cool, awesome. But that's one game. You got to look at it and say, what sets your franchise up for the next 5 years? And if you look at the building, no matter what somebody's accomplished, if you look in the building and you say, man, I don't know that this guy can get us back there, then does it really matter? Yeah, I obviously winning a Super Bowl for a city that loves it so much, that needed that moment, and it means so much to everybody historically, is awesome. And there will come a time where Philly can go back and re-embrace Doug Pederson for everything that was accomplished in that moment. But if Pederson can't get him back to the Super Bowl, who the hell cares what he did a couple of years ago? I'm all in on being aggressive about the next 5 and not the 5 before.
He's Jason Fitz. You can hear him on Spain and Fitz on 97.3 ESPN. They air weeknights at 9 o'clock. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. We're keeping our eye on Ben Simmons. Could he have played his last game in Philly? We know James Harden looks like he's played his last game in Houston. So keep it locked right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app, streaming live on Facebook.com as always. Jay, appreciate it, man.
You guys are the best. Thanks for giving us so much to talk about, because it's going to be an all Philly night on Spain and Fitz tonight.